Hi, hello everyone. Hope your week is off to a good start and happy Tuesday. If you are new to my channel, welcome. My name is Cameron and I'm very happy to have you here. I am hosting a bucket list challenge for 2026 and it is open to anyone who is interested in participating. And it is simply a bucket list for the year of 2026. There are 40 items on the list, and you can basically just pick and choose whatever interests you from that list. We're only a few weeks into the new year, so if you are interested, I would love to have you join us. I've also put together in addition to the list that you can find linked down below in the description, I've also linked my Pinterest vision board for the challenge, which I think would be useful for anybody who likes visual inspiration. And that is linked down below as well. So comment if you would like to join us. We would love to have you. The goal of this bucket list challenge is just to make 2026 a really fun and productive and adventurous and memorable a year. So would love to have you on board. So with that preamble out of the way, on to today's topic, which is one of the bucket list challenge items on the list, and that is to reread a series that you loved as a kid. I just finished doing that myself this week. Over the past maybe 2 or 3 weeks, I have reread Tamora Pierce's Song of the Lioness Quartet. Here it is, beautiful editions. I think that these were released fairly recently. But the books themselves were published in the 80s, and I first read them when I was about 10 or 11 years old. And I loved them at the time. I wasn't sure if they would hold up upon a reread now that I'm in my early 40s, but I have to say that I really enjoyed revisiting the universe in which the main character, Alana, and her friends live in. Yeah, I'm happy to say that I have loved them all over again these past few weeks. I gushed about them so much to my husband that he actually has just finished reading the first book in the quartet because he wanted to know what all the fuss was about. And I am obviously here today to gush to you as well about how much I loved these books as a kid and how fun it was to reread them again. I would still highly recommend them to girls in their early teens. And I guess I'll start with just kind of giving you a summary of what the story is about, but I will try to avoid spoilers. So this is a fantasy series set in a world that is, I would say, inspired by medieval Europe, but with some differences. So, for example, the social structure is based on feudalism, but the dominant religion is paganism rather than Christianity. So, yeah, similar to medieval Europe, but not exactly. The central character of these books is a girl named Alana. She's very much a tomboy. She has a twin brother named Tom. They're about 10 years old at the start of the story, and Alana is about to be sent off to a convent to learn to be a proper young lady. And Tom, meanwhile, is going to be sent to the palace in the capital city to learn how to be a knight. Both of them dread their respective fates. And so, yeah, they decide to trade places, basically. Alana disguises herself as a boy, and she heads off to the palace in the capital to learn to be a knight. And then Tom, meanwhile, goes to the convent because that is where he can learn sorcery, because his goal is to be a great sorcerer. But because Alana is our POV character, we go with her to the palace and watch her begin her training. And the rest of the series is basically her coming of age story. But there are a lot of other themes in addition to coming of age. I think the reason I wanted to return to these books in adulthood and choose this series to reread for the bucket list challenge is because these books were so memorable to me, and in many cases they represented firsts for me. So this series was the first time I read a character-driven fantasy. I wouldn't say first fantasy because I think I had read the Chronicles of Narnia before reading this series, but I don't consider the Chronicles of Narnia to be character-driven at all. In fact, I think a lot of fantasy isn't particularly character-driven, but these books are. They, you come for maybe the sword fighting, maybe the magic, but you end up staying for the characters. And that was definitely a first for me and really got me into fantasy, which I loved for the rest of my teenage years. I don't read a ton of fantasy now. When it comes to genre fiction, I read mostly mysteries, but these books definitely got me into fantasy. Then these books were also my introduction to romance. And just to be clear, there's no sexual content in these books. I mean, they are children's books, or at least, they're YA books. There's no sexual content, but these were the first books I had ever read in which characters fell in love in a realistic way, not like fairy tale style, but like real relationship style, and sometimes fell out of love. Again, fairy tales don't count, and one of the strengths of these books is that they are deliberately not fairy tales. They are very sophisticated, I think, in their treatment of relationships. Then this series was my first time reading a gender non-conforming character. Alana spends the first 2 books disguised as a boy and passing as a boy in order to accomplish her goals. She looks like a boy, she dresses like a boy, she acts like a boy, and then even once she is out as a female, she consistently refuses to let people put her in a gender role box. I'd say one of the themes of the books is that she doesn't fit neatly under any particular label. For example, she enjoys wearing dresses and being soft and feminine sometimes, but she also kicks ass and takes names, when the situation calls for it. And she has to learn to accept all of those different sides of herself. And the other characters around her also need to do that. And she has to discern who is able to do that. Researching a little bit for this vlog, I did find a really touching article written by a gay man. I'll link it down below, in which he talks about how these books were so impactful for him when he was growing up, and he was in an all-boys Catholic school as a gay youngster. And it occurs to me now that probably a lot of LGBT kids could identify with Alana, at least in the first half of her journey, because she is, in the closet, so to speak, and she has a lot of self-doubt and worries about whether any of her friends would like her, if they would like or accept her, if they knew the truth about her. So I think these books gave me a lot of empathy around that experience, which I never personally had, but I think it was great for me to, as a kid, encounter a gender non-conforming character. I think these books were also one of my first found family stories. I'm not sure about that because found families are so common in children's literature, but Alana's mother died in childbirth and her father is absent and neglectful. We actually never meet him in the series. So she assembles gradually over the course of her story, she assembles a family of friends, basically, who encourage and support her and accept her. And as you can probably tell, these books also more or less introduced me to feminism. I had read some girl-centered stories before, probably a lot of girl-centered stories, in fact. Anne of Green Gables was another favorite book of mine when I was about the same age. But Alana was definitely the first heroine I ever came across who pushed back against social norms. She's not like a political crusader or anything, and I wouldn't say that these books read as overtly political, but because she is demanding freedom to live life on her own terms and be true to herself in a world that doesn't welcome her being true to herself, she's just by default making a strong case for other women and girls to have the same opportunities. So the message to little girls who read these books is definitely, if you want to be a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, or a boxer, or in the military, or an engineer, or, insert your favorite male-dominated field here, go for it. I think that these were the first books where I ever really got that message, but delivered in a package of good storytelling. And then they represented one more first for me that I saved for last because it includes a spoiler. If anyone is interested in reading these books and doesn't want a major plot point spoiled for them, you will want to stop the video here. This part also ties into the theme of feminism, definitely, but Alana was the first heroine I encountered who had a golden opportunity to marry a prince and turns him down. That's what I mean when I say that this story is not a fairy tale and it depicts adult relationships. And the message of like so many Disney movies and other content that I consumed as a girl, and that I'm sure, little girls are still consuming, is that, the happiest outcome possible for a young woman is to marry Prince Charming. And Alana and the prince, to be fair, do fall in love. And he is a Prince Charming. He is a great guy. She truly loves him. But at the end of the day, she is self-possessed enough to realize that they want different things out of life. And I think that is such a wonderful message to send to young girls, particularly in the context of just so many messages saying marrying Prince Charming is the goal. Basically, happy endings are like ice cream, and there are many options, many varieties of flavors, and you need to choose for yourself rather than just automatically following someone else's script. So, as you can probably tell by now, these books were, for 11-year-old me, kind of a revelation. They were unlike anything I had ever read. They did for me exactly what all of the book banning enthusiasts are kind of terrified that books will do for kids. They opened my mind to other ideas, other perspectives, things I had never considered before. And they made me more curious. And I think that I would probably have become an avid reader no matter what, just because that's my nature. But these books definitely expanded my idea of like what books could offer to a reader, that they weren't just entertainment, that they were invitations to consider your deeper values and to understand people differently and to understand yourself differently. And I am forever grateful to Tamora Pierce, as I know so many other women are. I mean, I found tons of people online who are also huge fans of this series in particular for all the things that I've just listed. Tamora Pierce gave so much inspiration and encouragement to me and to so many other women when we were girls. And yeah, I just can't thank her enough for that. So that's enough gushing, I think, from me. I would love to know what your favorite books were as a kid, what series or book you would reread, what series or book had the most impact on you as a kid. Were there any books that turned you into a reader or changed the way you read books, or that have stuck with you for decades, as these books have stuck with me for decades? My husband has said that he is thinking about rereading The Westing Game, which I had heard of as a kid, but I didn't ever read, so I'm thinking I'm probably going to pick that up after he rereads it. But yeah, drop me a comment below and let me know what book impacted you as a kid. I would love to know. Obviously, I highly recommend this series if you're looking for something to give as a gift to a young woman in your life. And overall, I would just highly, highly recommend rereading those series that you loved as a kid. It's so much fun to see how they impacted you once you have the perspective of an adult looking back, and you can clearly see how these books affected your life. So that's all for this week. I am now off to finish making a chocolate cake. It's done. It's in the oven, so I have to go check on it. Valentine's Day is less than a week away now, and yeah, I don't feel like waiting to indulge, so I'm making a chocolate cake today and watching Olympics. Sort of the polar opposite. It's like watching all of these young, healthy, fit people do their incredible athletic feats while I eat chocolate cake. Sounds perfect to me. Yeah, so next week I'm going to be talking about another bucket list item, of course, and that is going to be to start a meditation practice. I already have a meditation practice. I've been meditating for a couple of years now, but I would like to be a little bit more consistent about it. So that is what I'm going to be talking about next week. In the meantime, I wish you a fantastic week and a happy Valentine's Day if you are celebrating, and I will talk to you again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.